7 worst breakfast foods for your waistline. In this video, I'm gonna go over some very high calorie, very unhealthy foods that you should steer clear of if you're looking out for your waistline or if you're aggressively trying to shred some body fat. Please guys, keep in mind that for some of these foods, there are healthy options or alternatives. There are some similar substitutions that you can eat and you can still eat them effectively without getting fat. But in general, most of these foods you're gonna wanna steer clear from. In general, these foods are not going to be healthy. They are not gonna be conducive to a diet that is minimizing weight gain. Probably best to avoid these altogether or only eat them rarely on occasion. Number 1 is going to be breakfast burritos. Yes, I know these are very, very good tasting, but guess what? Most of them are gonna be filled with, cheese, with, really fatty meats, maybe even some sour cream on there. Not only are these gonna be high calorie ingredients in most breakfast burritos, but think about where you get a lot of breakfast burritos. Fast food places, little holes in the wall, taco trucks, things like that, which probably use a bunch of oils in their cooking, and overall they're just not healthy options. Burritos are large too. Think about typically they're huge. They have these huge flour tortillas, which is probably 40, 50 grams of carbs just for the tortilla, and then they absolutely stuff it, and they're typically really, really big, high calorie meals. And I know breakfast burritos are fire. I've eaten plenty of them in my day. Drop a like on this video if you're a big fan of breakfast burrito. I wanna know which one of you guys are burrito lovers. Up for number 2 is going to be fried chicken and waffles. Now you can get this meal at a lot of, diners, at a lot of little restaurants that have, a good meal there. Now, unfortunately, deep fried chicken is going to be fried in seed oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. Most of the time, that's a highly inflammatory oil. It's not good for your health. It's also gonna increase the calories on the chicken by a significant amount. Fried chicken's beer battered, deep fried, and then you top that onto a waffle, which is typically just enriched white flour. We're talking about huge portion sizes, and then typically because it's a waffle, you're gonna be drizzling it in syrup. Now to be clear, maple syrup, real maple syrup is not inherently bad for you. I think in the right doses and the right portions, it's totally fine. It's one of the few healthy, naturally occurring sugar options that is really good. However, it is really high in natural sugars, which means that it's also really highly caloric. So, the difference between 1 tablespoon, 2, 3 tablespoons of syrup is a big change in the amount of sugar and the amount of calories. So be careful there, you can easily overdo it. Number 3 is going to be sugar cereals. Obviously, we know those are bad for you, right? We're talking about your Fruit Loops, your Lucky Charms, Fruity Pebbles, your, Reese's or Peanut Butter Pebbles or whatever the hell they're called, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, right? These are your fortified, all enriched corn starches, enriched flours, and by enriched, fortified, basically what I mean there is it's such a highly processed food, such a highly processed starch or grain that it's essentially stripped of all of its nutrients that it has naturally, and so they have to fortify it, they essentially have to enrich it, and they have to add in vitamins in order for it to be even considered healthy even in the slightest. Most of these have tons of added sugars, they've got added dyes, artificial flavorings, which are all bad juju. Now before I go into number 4, keep in mind guys that some of these high calorie foods that I'm talking about, some of these unhealthier foods, yes, you can technically eat these foods, work them into your regular day and not gain weight. It's just that most of the time, if you do that, that's going to mean that you need to be extra restrictive later in the day, or maybe even skip a meal entirely. And most people just simply won't do that, either because they don't know that they should, or because they simply are not able to control their appetite and do that. For number 4, we have cinnamon rolls. Might be a shock for some of you guys because you're thinking breakfast foods. Cinnamon rolls are definitely a breakfast food, especially here in America. There's plenty of people that eat cinnamon rolls as a breakfast. Super high in carbs, and it's that enriched white bleach flour. Most of the time it's gonna have butter probably drizzled on top or on the side or something like that, so it gets very high calorie very quickly. There's essentially no protein in here, and it's really not something that you wanna have in the morning. It's not a breakfast food. It doesn't have any protein. There's nothing to really help keep you satiated. It's just a bunch of, fast digesting, white, sugary, refined carbs. Essentially is gonna spike your blood sugar very quickly, leading to a crash and leading you to be sluggish, not satiated, and probably reaching for more food, an hour or so later. Funny enough, cinnamon rolls as breakfast right early in the morning is actually something that me and my family did growing up every single time somebody had a birthday. It was a family tradition of ours, so this one hits home for me for sure. And it wasn't until I got older, started really keeping tabs on my health and learning about nutrition, that I realized how bad this was as a breakfast food. Who else out there has family traditions that revolve around just horrible junk food? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious, what was the tradition? What food were you eating? Who else is with me on that one? Number 5, we've got donuts and other pastries that are high in sugar, high in carbs. Donuts are a very common breakfast breakfast food in America, as well as other countries, very similar to the cinnamon rolls. It's got lots of sugar, lots of, refined carbohydrates that are just gonna spike your blood sugar and lead to a crash. Not really providing you any significant nutrients that you want in the morning, nothing really there to hold you over and be a good, amount of sustenance to, keep you going throughout the day and provide you with some good energy. Number 6, we've got pancakes with syrup. This is an absolute classic for American breakfast. This is essentially just the breakfast version of cake. Where at night, for a cake dessert, you've got the same sort of like flour base with sugary frosting. Well, pancakes are sort of the same, and then you've got, butter, and you've got syrup that you're gonna spread on top, that is essentially the same thing. Again, you've got tons of syrup that you're gonna be pouring on top, which is super high in sugar, and maple sugar, maple syrup, really not that bad for you. It's just really easy to overdo it. And you have to be careful because a lot of times you go to diners, or if you just go to the grocery store and you pick up a syrup off the counter, you might not, or off the shelf rather, you might not know if this is actually real maple syrup that comes from maple trees, okay? You need to have that. That's the stuff that's naturally occurring that's actually good, whereas there's a lot of other stuff out there that's just straight high fructose corn syrup, straight corn syrup, glucose syrup, super highly processed, refined syrups, added sugars, artificial flavors, things like Mrs. Buttersworth or like Aunt Jemima's or whatever those ones are. Those are terrible, not natural at all. Keep in mind though that with pancakes as well, this isn't something typically you just have on the side. You have one little pancake or something where it's easy to fit it in and not go overboard. Pancakes are known, especially in America, it's like you get a stack, right? You go to IHOP and you get a stack, or you go to a diner, a breakfast food spot, you're going, to get brunch with your friends or your family, and typically the pancake serving size is like huge, and they have it on a side with your eggs and your sausage and the rest of your meal, so it's a lot. I mean, I can just tell you that there was a Greasy Spoon diner that me and my college buddies used to go to all the time when we were hungover, where I went to school, and basically they had huge portion sizes for their pancakes. They were known, they had these big plates, or probably big, round 12-inch, 16-inch plates, and the pancakes they would bring for one serving was 2 pancakes stacked on each other, and the pancakes were the entire size of the plate. That is way too much. Coming in last but not least at number 7 is going to be high calorie smoothies. Now I know what you're saying, What do you mean smoothies? Aren't smoothies good? Hey, don't get me wrong. Smoothies can definitely be good, and they can definitely be healthy for you, and you can make them low calorie. But most of the time that's gonna be if they're carefully curated and they're made at home where you know everything that's going into them. Sometimes if you're out and about, you're going to a smoothie place, you don't know if they add sugar, you don't know where all the ingredients are. Like for example, if you look at something like Jamba Juice, which is a really popular smoothie chain here in the US, they have a large peanut butter protein power smoothie that is 810 calories for that one smoothie. You really gotta be careful with this. Unless you're doing bodybuilding, unless you're really specifically trying to eat in a caloric surplus and you're trying to build muscle, this is not gonna be for you, and this is probably gonna be a type of smoothie you wanna avoid if you're trying to, get a slimmer waistline, trying to burn some fat, or drop down your body fat percentage. Even at home, you gotta be careful with this. It's very easy to accidentally think to yourself, okay, I'm using all these healthy ingredients, so this is healthy, right? But no, you gotta think about the portion size, and you gotta think about how many calories you're actually consuming. I've gone overboard, believe me, I've gone way overboard at home, right? I'm doing, a huge, scoop or 2 of nut butter, then I've got a bunch of Greek yogurt in there, then I've got tons of different berries, I'm drizzling honey on top, and then maybe a scoop or 2 of protein powder, and then it's like, next thing you know, I'm making a smoothie that's like between 750 and 1,000 calories. Like, just because all of the ingredients are, healthy and good doesn't mean you still can't go overboard, and doesn't mean you still can't gain weight. Keep that in mind, and go ahead and follow and subscribe along if you want more health hacks and you want to be more conscious about your health, optimizing yourself to have a lean, strong, and fully optimized physique and body. Have a great rest of your week.